It's all right. Watch.
We have 1 minute and then we'll get started.
Sounds good.
Do you have your flag ready?
I do.
Oh, we could do the one behind you.
That's right. That's what the one that Jason and I use.
Okay, it's 7 o'clock, so we'll get started. Good evening, everyone. This meeting is being held in compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act and is open to the media and public. Notices were duly posted and the meeting was advertised in the Hunterdon County Democrat and Courier News. Formal action may be taken. Roll call, please.
Dr. Cerciello.
Here.
Feedback.
Mr. Emmons. Mrs. Fiore. Beth Fiore.
She's here.
Hear us, Beth?
No, she can't hear us, but she's here. I see her.
Yeah.
Mrs. Flores.
Here.
Mrs. Bogorski.
No, I can't. Give me 1 second.
Mr. Wallace. Mr. Zwirling. Mrs. Hample.
Here.
Mrs. Simon.
Here.
I can hear you. Sorry, I'm here now. Sorry.
All right. Do you want to, can we stand for the flag salute? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, moving into the superintendent's report.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Simon. There are several items on the superintendent's report agenda that I want to share with the Board of Education this evening. I'm going to start with the district goals presentation. We set annual goals each year. And what I'd like to do this evening is, at this point, it's April 27th, run the board through the progress that we've made with our district goals thus far this year. These goals were discussed earlier in the fall and are linked and related to both our strategic plan as well as our Board of Education goals. So just to start with a quote from Teddy Roosevelt, he said, "Be practical as well as generous in your ideals. Keep your eyes on the stars, but remember to keep your feet on the ground." And I start with this quote that reflects how we've been progressing with our goals. I think this one is really appropriate for this school year. This year, of all years, we really had to keep our feet on the ground with the COVID pandemic, but we did not lose sight of the stars. We are still very much tethered to our strategic goals. And in a year like this, it was easy to lose sight of our strategic plan and our goals, but I found that our team, our teachers, and our administrators really did their best to keep their eyes on the mission and the vision of the school district, despite the unbelievable challenges that we were presented with the COVID-19 pandemic. So you may hear over the course of the presentation this evening how there were things that we piloted, or there were things that teachers explored in the schools at certain grade levels, because we really allowed this year to be an opportunity for teachers to explore, experiment, and pilot certain aspects of our strategic plan and our goals. So just some context to this year, as I mentioned before, these goals were colored with the COVID-19 pandemic. So much of our work this year revolved around pandemic protocols and procedures. Our teachers had to reinvent instructional practice, which was a huge feat in and of itself, while also attending to working toward our strategic goals. There was disruption of educational continuity due to hybrid and virtual schedules, quarantining of staff and students, yet we remain focused on our goals. So I just want to remind, as we talk about the goals and the progress that we made this year, that a lot of our work really focused on opening schools safely and protocols revolving around the pandemic. So as a reminder, our district goals, there are 4 for this year, 3 of which were developed through strategic planning. The first is inquisitive learning. The strategic planning committee developed this goal, which was to create and establish an inquiry-based framework that values an interest-driven learning environment. Learners will individually and collaboratively focus on identifying, analyzing, and solving problems as inquisitive members of their community. Second, we have our partnerships goal, again developed by the Strategic Planning Committee last year, which was to establish partnerships that foster meaningful educational opportunities on local, regional, and global scales. Prepare all learners to become engaged and productive citizens through service to others, collaboration, and real-world connections. And our other 2 goals, social awareness, our third strategic goal, which is our learners will feel connected, valued, and secure in a learning environment cultivated by a shared sense of community. Every individual will develop skills that promote an awareness of self and others, including the ability to understand the impact of their decision. And then our final goal that was related to this year and this year alone was the COVID-19 restart and response goal, which was to develop protocols to ensure a safe, efficient return to school during the COVID-19 pandemic, to ensure a consistent, cohesive instructional program. So let's begin with talking about inquisitive learning. In terms of how it fits with a board goal, I thought that the most appropriate board goal that inquisitive learning fit was to set, budget parameters to effectively plan for enrollment growth, maintain breadth and quality of educational and co-curricular programming while remaining fiscally accountable to the community. So I really think it's that middle part that talks about the breadth, the depth, and the quality of an educational and co-curricular program that really relates very nicely with inquisitive learning. So remember this goal, it really revolves around setting an inquiry-based framework where students do some exploration on their own. So some of our actions that we completed this year related to this goal first was to raise awareness of inquiry through the Reddington News, the superintendent newsletter, parent academies, and school newsletters. Second, we had grade 3 across the district and the G&T program's pilot inquiry passion projects, and the board and the community saw evidence of the grade 3 passion projects a couple of weeks ago when we had our Three Bridges third graders come and talk with us. Inquiry projects were also piloted in other circumstances throughout the district, and I just want to highlight a few, one of which is coming, and we'll talk about tonight with the Ed Tech Committee report. We had a group of Reddington Middle School students who did a passion project related to a district logo. So we commissioned our middle schoolers to redesign our logo, and they're in the process of doing that right now. In 5th grade here at Hollenbrook School, there were Genius Hour projects that occurred that have been occurring for a while. So what we're planning on doing is taking these established piloted programs and building upon them in years to come. There were professional development opportunities that were provided for our teachers. These were workshops that were devoted to inquiry learning and using student interest inventories to find out and gather more information about student interests so that they could engage in a project that was related to their interests. These interest inventories accompanied 3rd grade projects, and they were also done in classrooms in grades 6 and 7, particularly science classrooms where the teachers were really trying to focus some science topics around student interests, and as well as all of our G&T classes where students have a lot of autonomy to develop projects of their choosing. And then finally, I just want to highlight that our teachers were involved in inquiry projects of their own. So not only are we giving students the opportunity to engage in inquiry projects, we're actually giving teachers the opportunity to be inquirers themselves and teacher researchers themselves. And we had a cohort of approximately 10 teachers this year that engaged in some kind of passion project of their own, and some of which I'm proud to say have published an article that hopefully will see be published in some kind of academic journal soon. But these teachers engaged not only in the process, but also developed a project of their own and have shared that with their colleagues this past March at our Professional Development Day. So this is some of the work that we accomplished with inquisitive learning. Our second goal under partnerships. So it really fits with board goal number 1, which talks about communications and expanding community engagement. So this partnerships goal really focuses on the community engagement aspect of our Board of Education goal number 1, and really taking our efforts and broadening just beyond Reddington, but even into the state and national level. So some of the actions that we completed was curating a bank of partners, partners that are really here in our community, but other partners that might be more state or national level that are linked with the curriculum. So our teachers were able to identify and search for various partners across the state, national, and local level that could fit into the curriculum in various ways. And we have a Google Sheet that lists all of these partners that we can select from, and eventually we'll be adding these partners in enhancing the curriculum. Virtual field trips have been piloted along with a virtual author visit. So there were virtual field trips that took place in approximately 10 classrooms over at White House. At RMS, the grade 6 students did a virtual field trip to the Penn Museum. Reddington Middle School also hosted a virtual author visit. Hollenbrook in grade 4, there was a virtual poet field trip, one to the river, and then also a virtual field trip to the State House. And at Three Bridges, there were various grade level trips, including the watershed ambassadors to help students with their passion projects. So our community partners were also linked to some of the passion projects in grade 3 at White House and Three Bridges. We enhanced our green and sustainability partners in the Green Committee meeting back in the fall. Mrs. Freeman presented the fact that we established our first chapter of the National Green Schools Society that's run by students, and we've partnered with even Columbia University in some of their research and some of their work in our green initiatives. And then student passion projects over at Three Bridges, which you heard about last week or 2 weeks ago, also incorporated a community partner. So when we piloted passion projects, students were able to add to their research and add to their passion by talking with an expert in the field, and that really enhanced their project and their learning. Social awareness, this is our SEL or social emotional learning goal, and it does fit with board goal number 4, which is to ensure integration of social emotional learning across the curriculum with alignment of the SEL competencies with equity and inclusion. So over the course of this year, Mr. Tumalo and Mrs. Beagle developed 4 SEL parent nights that were developed, yes, by faculty and staff, but also coordinated with our student leadership at RMS, who presented at all 4 of these parent nights. And we have one more left coming up at the end of May. We incorporated the Child Assault and Prevention Program in grades 6 through 8. This program is developed and designed to promote student advocacy. And it was so successful in grades 6 through 8 that we expanded the program to grades 3 to 5 through an opportunity that the CAP program gave us over the course of the year this year. The superintendent coffee chat, I believe it was the one back in October, revolved around mental health, and we had some of our partners from Hunterdon Behavioral Health come and talk with our parents and community along with our school counselors. Student wellness checks occurred several times this year, and school counselors identified students that perhaps needed some kind of wellness intervention and had meetings with those students, which is something that the pandemic taught us was, this is another way to connect with students, even in a virtual environment, and have even virtual meetings with students to check in on them and ensure that they are emotionally well. And finally, we did add back in the fall, some aspects of identifying areas of equity diversity, and inclusion with our social awareness strategic goal. So what we've done is we've begun to work with equity and SEL, and we have future training plans. So the milestones we completed thus far this year is that we've done some training with our administrative team. We have one administrator who's been identified as being in charge of this initiative. There was an inclusivity club that was developed at RMS. And that club is running currently and doing very well. And we've also incorporated a lot more diverse literature into our curriculum, particularly literature that is devoted to the contributions of the LGBTQ community, as well as contributions of students or individuals, not just students, but individuals with disabilities. And that's being infused into our curriculum currently. And finally, goal 4, this is our COVID response and recovery goal. And our goal was to continue, our board goal that this is related to is to continue to upgrade and refine safety and security measures to ensure student and staff safety. And this is certainly related to student and staff safety. So over the course of this year, we implemented our Readington Ready plan, and we revised it when necessary. We certainly expanded in-person instruction from starting the year in September to being fully virtual, to gradually bringing students back until everyone was back in early October. To then expanding in-person instruction to early dismissal days 4 days a week. And then this week, tomorrow being the first day that we're doing 5 days a week of expanded in-person instruction. Communications were sent out on a bi-weekly, sometimes even weekly basis to parents and to staff. There was a video that was created, one for parents and one for staff, that actually walked parents and staff members through a classroom and how a day may look in the life of a child under the COVID restrictions that we had here in school. And we continued our partnership with the Department of Health and collaborating with them on cases when needed. So all of this points to a successful year in responding to COVID-19 and the pandemic. So at the end of the day, the big picture is that these goals allowed us to move our strategic work forward despite the pandemic. So even in an extraordinary year where we were tasked with educating students in a pandemic, what we did is we really kept our eye on these goals and we kept reaching for the stars. Over the course of the year, we've learned a lot about teaching and learning. We tried and piloted various aspects of our strategic plan. So we gave students and teachers the opportunity to explore. And we're currently adjusting our course and recalibrating our strategic plan to set a direction for the future, hopefully post-pandemic. So right now what we're doing is we're working on revising our strategic plan as necessary to ensure that we set a plan for the future, learning everything that we've learned over the course of the year with the pandemic. So this really was a huge collaborative effort. I can't thank the administrators, the teachers, and especially the students enough for their willingness to try out some new challenges over the course of an already challenging year. This truly was a collaborative effort. So thank you. Are there any questions from board members or anything you want me to dive into a little bit further? I can go back to any slides if you'd like me to. Okay. Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Again, this is a brief overview. Should anybody have more specific questions, please let me know. I'd be happy to answer them, and we will continue moving forward with our strategic work. And as we talked in board committees and we'll report out tonight, should the board have any input or any thoughts about strengthening or revising or somehow changing our strategic plan, please let me know. We're currently working on that right now. So I thought overall, it's been a successful year. It's springtime, the weather's getting nicer, and we look forward to the end of the school year and wrapping up a unusual but good school year.
Dr. Hart, I just want to add, thank you so much. I know it's been, like you said, a very difficult year, but I think the goals were met. A lot of them were met. And just the fact that they were able to be addressed in the kind of year that it was says a lot about, your leadership and also the team in each school. Everyone has obviously worked very hard. I'm sure the kids have they're back. They're happy to be back, and I just wanted to acknowledge your very measured approach in keeping everybody safe. I think it's been an excellent year, and I thank you for that.
Thank you very much, Dr. Cerciello. I really appreciate that. And I will highlight again too, it was a team effort. It was a challenging year, but we were able to successfully, keep kids safe, manage the pandemic, as well as continue our goals. So thank you so much. I appreciate that. I'm going to share my next screen. And Jason and I are going to take a moment to present with you the CUSAC results from our CUSAC audit for this school year, 2020-2021. So I'll start walking through with the first couple of slides, and there'll be opportunities where I'll turn this over to Jason as well. So first, we'll start with what is CUSAC. CUSAC is the New Jersey Quality Single Accountability Continuum. What this is, it is a New Jersey Department of Education monitoring system. It involves a self-evaluation tool. So that by monitoring a system, we're talking about the state monitoring to ensure compliance and to ensure that districts are performing highly or adequately according to state standards. It involves first a self-evaluation tool, which is the tool that was presented to you back in December, where a committee of individuals met to look at certain aspects of our district operations and give ourselves a score, a self-assessment score. The state has shifted their monitoring and evaluation focus from simply being compliance to assistance and capacity building. So ultimately, what the state is trying to do through their CUSAC monitoring system is not just check boxes to ensure compliance, but give districts feedback to build capacity to ensure that we are a high achieving or high functioning school district. And the CUSAC monitoring system includes state laws and federally funded requirements. So anytime, we say it's state mandated, what CUSAC did was have the state come in to ensure that anything that was state mandated actually was being followed through with in the district. And the monitoring was focused on 5 key areas known as district performance review areas, or DPRs. One is fiscal, and Jason will talk about that. The second is governance, which is about how we operate as a Board of Education. The third is instruction and program, which is curriculum, instruction, assessment, and state test scores. Operations, which involves a lot of special education operations as well as other district operations. And then personnel, which obviously is personnel related, hiring staff members, monitoring, training staff members, and ensuring compliance with evaluation standards. So back in December, I would say actually, let's start back in November, a team of internal reviewers did a self-assessment based off of all of the evidence that's been collected. And this was a committee of stakeholders that involved our very own Carol Hampel as a Board of Education member, myself, Jason, Ms. Pouch as a district supervisor, Mrs. Beagle, and 2 members of the teaching staff, one of which an RTA member. The other one was also an RTA member, but both teaching staff members here in the district. The group got together, looked at all of the indicators under each one of these 5 DPRs and looked at all of the evidence that had been uploaded to send to the state and gave ourselves the following self-assessment scores. Under instruction and program, 87%. Part of that score was also given to us prior by the state, and I'll explain that in a moment. Fiscal management, 100%. Governance, 100%. Operations, 100%. And personnel, 100%. Once we certified our self-assessment scores, we then sent the scores off to the state, along with all of the documentation. We had a meeting with the county superintendent and left the state to review all of the documentation, ask us any follow-up questions if needed, and it was their role to then provide to us scores that they deemed appropriate based off of the evidence that we provided. When the state returned the scores, The following scores were received by the district. Instruction and program was an 87%, fiscal management 96%, governance 100%, operations 89%, and personnel 100%. All of these scores mean that we have satisfied the 80% minimum requirement for each DPR, and thus we maintain our status as a high-performing district. But as you can see, not all scores are 100%. So Jason and I want to report to you what the state has identified as an area for capacity building and how we've already created an action plan to build our district capacity to reach 100% next time we're monitored. So as background, the instruction and program score. The instruction and program score is provided to us by the Department of Education initially. So it consists of two parts, achievement scores and then curriculum and policy. So back in December, when we reported the 87% in instruction and program score, that was the score that was given to us by the state based off of the achievement scores that we had received, and it assumed that our curriculum and policy were 100% within alignment. And then we provided information to the county office about our curriculum and policy, and they assigned us an 87% score, which means we didn't lose any other points on curriculum and policy. So all of our curriculum documents and all of our curriculum policies are updated and still in the high performing range. So we received all points possible that we could have received on curriculum policy. The only areas where we lost points were points that were related to either student achievement or student growth as measured by the New Jersey Student Learning Assessment. And as you know, we haven't taken that assessment in a year now, and we will not take it again this year. So we'll see with the next monitoring, which will be 3 years from now, how instruction and program may change. But the good news is anything related to the curriculum documents and our curriculum policy was 100%. Jason, finance.
For the finance area, we received feedback from the county office that originally they had scored us at 100%, but by further review by the state of New Jersey, they docked us 4 points, leaving us, instead of having 100%, at 96%, based on a 2018-19 audit finding. The county office had provided us 100% compliance because they reviewed the 2019-20 audit, which had no recommendations. Our 2018-19 audit had one significant deficiency noted relating to extraordinary aid applications and the calculations behind those. Corrective action was put into place after that audit finding in the last school year. In essence, there was a formula error in our backup calculations, which led to an input error into the state website. We corrected that by correcting the formula error in the back end data spreadsheet, which then was reviewed for proper input by both the Pupil Services Department as well as the business office. We had our independent auditor, BKC, come in and audit that before the final submission to ensure there was no issues. So that has been fully resolved as of last year and again this year.
Moving forward, operations, area of comment and corrective action. There were 2 comments that we received under the area of operations. The first comment was related to the SS&DS report, which is the Student Safety Data Report, which we board approve over the course of the school year, twice each school year. So the report was actually due on August 10th, 2020, and we verified the report on August 13th, 2020, missing the deadline. So this was likely because deadlines were moved for state reporting several times due to the COVID pandemic over the summer, in the spring and the summer. We thought that this was likely, the deadline change was likely the cause of the fact that this report was not submitted at the August 10th deadline, because that deadline had moved several times. It was actually filed on August 13th, so it was just a couple of days late. and we believe that this was simply just due to a clerical error. This was reviewed with the administrator in charge of the SSDS report. It was investigated to ensure that this was in fact what had occurred, and the administrator in charge now is aware of the fact that the deadline was missed and is certainly will be watching the deadlines or any changes of the deadlines ever in the future. The second comment was related to providing training on our missing, abused, or neglected children policy to volunteers and interns. And I know Jason has already worked out the corrective action where we're developing a training module. So I'll let him speak to that.
Yes, so the comment surrounded providing training, state mandated training to volunteers and interns. So we provide and monitor state training requirements for all staff and members that may come into contact in the community to our school district. When we reviewed the state mandated training for interns and volunteers, we did not believe we actually had any persons that met that criteria. We have no interns in the district, nor have had any for the past several years. And by volunteers, the state definition means volunteers that are regularly in the school district, perhaps unsupervised, that need to be fingerprinted and background checked by the state. So this isn't really the HSA volunteers or people that are class moms or class parents or class fathers. This is more of formal volunteers who might be assisting in the library 2 to 3 days per week, every week of the school year. So there's a delineation between those. However, the state thought it was a best practice for us to provide this training to even informal volunteers that may help out at various events throughout the school year, as well as potential future interns that we may have. So we developed the Safe Schools training module. We talked to the president of the HSA. We're hopeful that we are going to implement that training for HSA leadership, as well as classroom parents this coming fall, and student interns and other volunteers. So that will satisfy that mandate going forward.
Very good. But the conclusions are that there were no comments on the personnel and governance DPRs. I think that this, since we're in a board meeting, I think this is also a credit to the fact that we are a very high functioning Board of Education, which suggests, our governance score being 100% lets us know that we really do operate as a very good Board of Education, as well as the 100% score in personnel does indicate that our personnel record keeping is more than within compliance. Any area where we lost points and received a comment, we have already remedied with our internal protocols. This feedback allows for more capacity building, and we will maintain our status as a high-performing district. The next time that you will hear about CUSAC and our district will be 3 years from now when we are up for review again. Until then, because we are high-performing, there really is nothing formal that we have to do. Jason and I chose to make this formal presentation to report these conclusions to you, but because we do not fall below the 80% mark, there is no official corrective action that we have to send to the state. This is really for your information. So thank you very much. And I'll see if you have any questions about CUSAC. All right. Those are the two formal presentations tonight. I just want to mention on the agenda tonight, resolution number 3.06 is our final budget adoption. So we presented back in March our tentative budget. It's been returned from the state with no substantial changes, meaning everything that we presented back in March, and we've included that in the board documents, is approved for your consideration tonight under agenda item 3.06 with no changes. So everything that we developed back in March as part of the budget will stay in the budget. And the revised district calendar is agenda item 6.03. As we discussed in committee, we have one snow contingency day as a give back day to staff and students. securing and shoring up June 18th is the final day of school, and allowing us to move full steam ahead with graduation plans for the spring. I will open up for any questions from the Board of Ed. All right.
No questions. I just wanted to say, great job with the QSAC. I know each time we go through this, people are on pins and needles a little bit. So very, very successful year. So thank you for that.
You're very welcome. Thank you. And Mrs. Simon, if there's no other questions or comments, that concludes my superintendent's report.
All right, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't see any comments. So if there's anybody online that you have a question, because we're going into open to the public for anything on the agenda. So you can raise your hand before we move into the agenda. Wait a moment. If it's anything off the agenda, there's another time for public comment at the end. Not seeing any. We'll move on. Correspondence. We had one correspondence since our last board meeting, and that was regarding a bus matter. Moving on to administrative reports. Can I get a motion to adopt? Oh, sorry. We're adding another item. So the motion is going to be revised. It's motion to adopt 1.01 to 1.04. And you should all have received that addendum. And I'll go ahead and read that. Motion 1.04, the motion to accept the HIB report and affirm the superintendent's decision on the following case. Case number 5, the school is RMS. The date was March 8th, 2021. And the finding of harassment, intimidation, or bullying was no. So can I get that motion, please?
So moved, Carol.
Can I get a second?
Second, Camille.
Thank you. All right, are there any questions on those items? Not hearing any, can I get a roll call, please?
Dr. Cerciello,
Yes.
Mr. Evans,
Yes.
Mrs. Fiore,
Yes.
Mrs. Flores,
Yes.
Mrs. Bogorski,
Yes.
Mr. Wallace, Mr. Zwirling,
Yes.
Mrs. Sample,
Yes.
Mrs. Simon,
Yes.
passes.
Moving on to the minutes. Can I get a motion to adopt 2.01 to 2.02, please?
So moved, Carol.
Seconded.
Who was that? Who seconded?
Anthony.
Anthony or Carolyn, I think. Sorry.
Anthony.
All righty. Are there any changes to the minutes that are necessary? Not hearing any. Can I get a roll call, please?
Dr. Cerciello,
Yes.
Mr. Emmons,
Yes.
Mrs. Fiore,
Yes.
Mrs. Flores,
Yes.
Mrs. Bogorski,
Yes.
Mr. Zwirling,
Yes.
Mrs. Sample,
Yes.
Mrs. Simon,
Yes.
passes.
Moving on to finance and facilities. Can I get a motion to adopt 3.01 to 3.09, please?
So moved, Carolyn.
Second, Carol.
All righty, thank you. We have a committee report.
Yes, good evening. The Finance and Facilities Committee met on Wednesday, April 21st. And the first thing we discussed was the RMS well number 2. The system is installed and up and running. All paperwork has been submitted, and we are waiting to receive the finalized paperwork, including the engineering report. We continue to pass all monthly tests. The next thing we discussed were the 2021-2022 capital projects, beginning with the roofing project bid, which happened April 20th. It's now an attorney review. The architect had a meeting with the top 2 companies to confirm the details of the job. Then we discussed the RMS bleachers replacement, which is on hold at this time. We're waiting for new pricing from Nickerson. The project should be awarded within the next 10 days. We may start the new school year with the existing bleachers out, and the new bleachers will be installed in September after school hours. Also, other maintenance and IT projects were discussed, including repainting the hallway lockers in RMS, floor work, sidewalk repair, window repairs, painting projects, tech projects. All of these projects will not interfere with ESY programs. Moving forward, the architect requested that all summer capital projects to be board approved by November. We also then had the 21-22 budget update, where the county office has approved and no major modifications. As Dr. Hart just mentioned, we have the final vote tonight as well. And there'll be a budget newspaper article going out in May. We then talked about grants, starting with HSA canopies. 3 of the 4 canopies were damaged in a recent windstorm. 1 canopy has been repaired, and parts have been ordered for the other 2 damaged canopies. The canopy will be placed next to a wall to ensure additional support and minimize wind impact. The canopies can also be used for HSA-sponsored outdoor events, and an SOP, or Standard Operating Procedure, has been created. The ESSA, which stands for Every Student Succeeds Act, Title I ineligibility census appeal was denied by the federal government based on the 2010 census. But once the new census data is finalized, we will likely be eligible for Title I in future years. Titles 2, 3, and likely Title 4 will remain for the 21-22 school year. The American Rescue Act, or ESSER 3, the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief, which is the 3rd federal stimulus we also talked about as a possibility. But currently, the ESSER 2 grant includes employee mental health, a part-time behavioral youth services counselor for RMS, and 2 remediation/accelerated learning programs for all 4 schools for COVID recovery. This is a virtual intensive intervention services program that will run over the summer and continue that program into the fall, providing after-school services and transportation home. And if we receive ESSER 3 funds, we could also continue that summer program and then the after-school program and possibly additional mental health services the following year. Securing our Children's Future Bond Act, there's still no action with that at this time. We then talked about the food service management bid, which will be opening on May 6th. We incorporating sustainability requests, including serving fresh fruits and vegetables instead of canned fruits and vegetables, utilizing reusable trays, providing paper straws instead of plastic straws, and no styrofoam, and all meal packaging should be recyclable. We also talked about the impact of the pandemic on the cafeteria operating balances, comparing January 2020 to January 21, where the cash balance decreased from $175,000 to $78,000 in the last 12 months due to the pandemic. The breakfast program has allowed our cash balance, however, to remain positive. We also talked about low-income population and snack time. Discussion regarding providing snacks, possibly to low-income population, and more discussion to follow. We then went on to the New Jersey Department of the Agricultural Audit. There was a recommendation on our non-program foods, including cookies, snacks, and water, or any foods that are not part of the food program. We need to increase our prices based on the state formula. This increase has not yet been determined. SSO breakfast program also is currently under review. We then had a discussion regarding bus drivers, including health benefits, hours, a new driver trainer, CDL requirement, and other district positions, and also our relationship with Branchburg. We also talked about the strategic plan. Last year, we adopted the long-term strategic district goals, including, as we heard earlier, inquisitive learning, partnerships, social awareness. We piloted various programs this year amid the pandemic. We're in the process of reevaluating our goals and action steps and possibly developing revised goals for the next 5 years. We also mentioned the RTA negotiations, which will be on the future board agenda. And finance agenda items, including budget resolutions, the HBS roof bid results, and the NJDA corrective action plan, various shared services agreements. And we decide our next meeting is going to be Friday, May 7th. That concludes the report.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Are there any questions on the agenda item or the minutes that were read out? Not hearing any. Can I get a roll call, please?
Dr. Cerciello,
Yes.
Mr. Herman,
Yes.
Mrs. Fiore,
Yes.
Mrs. Flores,
Yes.
Mrs. Bogorski,
Yes.
Mr. Wallace, Mr. Zwirling,
Yes.
Mrs. Sample,
Yes.
Mrs. Simon.
Yes. Moving on to education technology. Can I get a motion to adopt 4.01 through 4.08, please?
Carol Hample.
Second, Camille.
Thank you. And we have a report.
We do. So the Ed Tech Committee met on April 22nd. We discussed the district new logo project. We provided feedback on 12 designs. We are narrowing down to the top 5 to present to the full board, and all 12 students who became finalists will be recognized by the board. The ESSER-funded Summer Accelerate Learning Virtual Home Instruction Program. This will be learning acceleration over the summer as virtual instruction for students in math and ELA. It will be 4 weeks in the summer, and there will also be after-school tutoring in the fall with busing provided. And we are looking into ways to provide PD and student support for mental health. That's with the ESSER funding. An update on summer enrichment. The summer enrichment programs, again, are STEM, Kitchen Creations, Arts and Crafts, and Welcome to RMS. As of April 20th, we had 51 registrations. The deadline is May 10th, so approximately 2 weeks, but we are already in the black for the program. The New Jersey School Performance Report, this is an annual report that's done, but because there was no state testing in 2019-2020, there were no substantive updates, and those results can be found on the district website. The CAP, Child Assault and Prevention Grant, we're going to continue that again next year. It was well received last year at RMS, so it was expanded into grades 4 and 5. Next year, we will do grades 3 through 5, and then the teen cap for grade 7. Grade 8 was not included because they got teen cap as grade 7 this year, which is also the same for the current 6th graders. And that also includes a parent learning session. So the NJSLA was canceled. The federal government approved New Jersey's plan to test in the fall. So we will use a Start Strong assessment for grades 4 through 8 in ELA and math, as well as science for 6th grade students. Individual results will be immediate. The district results will be 3 to 4 weeks. Students identified as needing support based on the Start Strong assessment will be eligible for after-school tutoring in the fall. The DLM, which is Dynamic Learning Map, which is for special education students, and Access for ELL, which is a proficiency assessment for English language learners, will still be conducted this spring. We are continuing the teacher inquiry project. Over the summer, there will be an inquiry consultant providing a 3-day workshop with teachers who completed the project over the last 2 years to teach the teachers how to lead inquiry projects. So we expect this to be the last year of the consultant, and this will be paid for with the ESSA grant. We reviewed the strategic plan updates, in particular social awareness goals and any Other modifications should be sent to Dr. Hart. Gifted and talented in ELA honors criteria. Because of the NJSLA not being conducted and other criteria changes, the honors criteria consists of classroom grades, teacher recommendations, second interval running records, benchmark writing assessments, and as I just said, it because the NJSLA scores were not, NJSLA test was not administered. The gifted and talented. So the process begins with teacher and parent nominations, followed by a universal screening, and then the final review by the G&T committee. So the iReady diagnostic replaced the NWEA for grades 1 through 3 criteria, which we are happy about because it provides more information. The NJSLA results will be omitted from grades 4 through 7, but we are adding a portfolio assessment, which will include a reflection project, a writing piece, and a creative piece. And the proposed new process for the universal screener, it will only be given to grades 2 and 5, which we hope will prevent overexposure to the test and ensure we are assessing students accurately and equitably. And within the next 2 years, we will be moving to a new assessment because the current assessment does not work with Chromebooks. Update on special education, the autism program and BD program for next year and extended school year. So there are currently 2 autism classes at White House School. One of them will be moving on to Hollenbrook School and the current teacher will follow. And we are developing a BD program at TBS for next year if we identify students that are in need. Extended school year, so far we have 22 students that are eligible. It will be a traditional 5-week program for self-contained students. We will be adding an extra hour as part of COVID recovery, and we will be adding a literacy program. Just a note, the teacher appreciation, staff appreciation is next week, and our next meeting will be May 11th at 8:30 a.m.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions on the agenda items or the minutes that were read out?
I just had a comment on the summer enrichment. I noticed the sign at Hollenbrook School for drop off, which I thought was great. Just curious if we're planning on doing signs for the other schools also, if maybe they just hadn't been rolled out yet. Anyone know?
I will have to go take a look at the sign and see if we can put it in other schools. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, I do know that we ordered signs for all the schools, but I can check into that with the coordinator.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I thought they were very successful.
Thanks, Beth.
I had a question on the BD program, looking at 3 bridges. Do you have a deadline that you're looking to make that decision?
The deadline really, I'll say this, we're in annual review time now where we are identifying students and their needs for next year. So annual reviews are happening right now. We have identified, and Stacy, you're on the call. I know we talked about it just today, at least one, maybe a second student that would be eligible for the program, but we're waiting to see the results of the IEP meeting. What we're doing, though, is for students who we think may be eligible, we're crafting the schedule in a way where they will be assigned a teacher. And if more students are added, we can convert that classroom from, let's say, a resource room to then a BD classroom and have them stay with the same teacher. So what we're doing is we're crafting IEPs and we're crafting the schedule in a way that allows the teacher flexibility to either call it a, let's say, for example, a resource program or transition it into a BD program if and when we identify students who may be in need.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, does anybody have any other questions on the minutes or the agenda items? Not hearing any, can I get a roll call, please?
Dr. Cerciello,
Yes.
Mr. Emmons,
Yes.
Mrs. Fiore,
Yes.
Mrs. Flores,
Yes.
Mrs. Bogorski,
Yes.
Mr. Wallace,
Yes.
Mr. Drawing,
Yes.
Mrs. Sample,
Yes.
Mrs. Simon.
Yes.
Passes.
Personnel. Can I get a motion to adopt 5.01 to 5.06, please?
So moved, Carolyn.
Can I get a second?
Carol.
Carol, thank you. All right, we have committee report.
Yep. So we had a meeting on April 21st. And we discussed the following items: staffing, transportation with Branchburg, enrollment projections, non-aligned staff, draft of strategic planning documents, calendar revision, which will be off from school on May 28th, which is part of Memorial Day weekend. We discussed board training, a new job description of assistant business administrator, other personnel matters, and the following agenda items: job description revisions, renewals on May 4th, non-aligned staff increases, board training, discussion and contract, and a calendar revision. And our next meeting is Tuesday on May 4th at 6 o'clock.
I have 5:30. Is that right?
I think we changed it.
Okay.
I believe after this was sent out, if I remember correctly, we changed it to 6.
Okay, thanks.
That's correct.
Are there any questions on the minutes or the agenda items? Not hearing any. Can I get a roll call, please?
Dr. Cerciello,
Yes.
Mr. Emmons,
Yes.
Mrs. Fiore,
Yes.
Mrs. Flores,
Yes.
Mrs. Bogorski,
Yes.
Mr. Wallace,
Yes.
Mr. Zwirling,
Yes.
Mrs. Sample,
Yes.
Mrs. Simon.
Yes.
Passes.
Communication. Can I get a motion to adopt 6.01 to 6.03, please?
So moved, Tom.
Second, Carol.
Thank you. We have a committee report.
Yes, we do. Thank you. The Policy Communications Committee met on April 12th. We discussed abolishing residency policy 5118 and use of school facilities policy 7150. Residency policy 5118 was very similar to a policy we currently have 5111, and it had contradictory dates for when school tuition would be warranted. So the committee recommended abolishing policy 5118. And policy 7150 seems to have been a typo at some point, covers the same items as a current policy 7510, use of school facilities. We also discussed the following Strauss Esme Policy Alert 222 relating to Every Student Succeeds Act. The following policies are state mandated updates. Policy 1643, Family Leave. Policy 2415, Every Student Succeeds Act. Policy 2415.02, Title I, Fiscal Responsibilities. Policy 2415.05, Student Surveys, Analysis, and/or Evaluations. Policy 2415.20, Every Student Succeeds Act Complaints. Policy 4125, Employment of Support Staff Members. Policy 6360, Political Contributions. Policy 8330, Student Records. Policy 9713, Recruitment by Special Interest Groups. Those all relate to the Every Student Succeeds Act. Then we discussed the following policies and recommended abolishing. These are related to the family policy 1643, family leave. And the following will be consolidated into a new, the following policies will be consolidated into a new family leave policy 1643. That's policy 3431.1, policy 4431.1, policy 3431.3, policy 4431.3. Sorry, this is very boring and a lot of numbers. We discussed the final recommendations from the policy alert 2222 from Strauss Esme. The committee recommended abolishing the following No Child Left Behind policies. They are no longer relevant since the Every Student Succeeds Act. And that's policy 2415.01, 2415.03. Then the superintendent, Dr. Hart, and business administrator, Jason Bohm, created a communication flyer or mailer that went out to residents in the redistricted area. We discussed that. The mailer will include a tearaway portion to be returned to the school if the household anticipates future students in the district, just so we get an idea of who would be coming in, so we can plan accordingly. And that is not my last page. That's not my last page is here. We discussed the revisions to the calendar, as Dr. Hart mentioned earlier, extending the Memorial Day holiday by closing school on Friday, May 28th, which was a snow contingency day. Dr. Hart asked the committee for input on the draft strategic plan. Mr. Zwirling made suggestions regarding the inclusion of sustainability goals into the strategic plan, and we discussed those further. And then the last thing we discussed was tentative topics for press releases. The May topic was has been delayed. It was the launch of the new website, which is still currently being worked on, and that registration for students is open. And then we also discussed the June issue, maybe a year in review, and a budget article from Jason Bohm. Our next meeting is scheduled for May 3rd at 4 p.m. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. Do we have any questions on the minutes or the agenda items? Not hearing any. Can I get a roll call, please?
Dr. Cerciello,
Yes.
Mr. Emmett,
Yes.
Mrs. Fiore,
Yes.
Mrs. Flores,
Yes.
Mrs. Pogorski,
Yes.
Mr. Wallace,
Yes.
Mr. Zwirling,
Yes.
Mrs. Sample,
Yes.
Mrs. Simon.
Yes.
Aye.
Unfinished business. We need to talk about the board self-evaluations and training opportunities. Dr. Hart, do you want to take that over?
Sure, I certainly will. So back in, I want to say March, when we talked about the board self-evaluation, board member or so, maybe two, talked about maybe getting a third-party individual to come in and look at our self-evaluation and do some board training. As we discussed in the personnel committee, we talked about a couple of options, and we approved tonight on the board agenda to engage Judith Wilson, someone who's had a relationship with the district and helping with the strategic plan in the past, having her come in and do some training with the board. Our initial thought in the committee was that our board meetings in July and August start at 5 o'clock, and for her to begin these board trainings in the summer, knowing that our board meetings start at 5 o'clock, and it would provide ample opportunity for her to start those meetings with some board training with us. And if we do them in July and in August, we can start both meetings at 5, do some board training, and then attend to our ordinary board business. But I'll open it up to the board. This was just a discussion in the committee about what would be the best opportunity to conduct board training. And we certainly will talk with her about the second thing to propose to the board, which is what kind of opportunities would you like to see included in the training? Because the reason why we're going with someone who we know that has a relationship with the district is to ensure that we don't get a canned training, but rather a training that's more customized for our needs. So, two questions for the board really. Are we okay with July and August board meetings starting at 5 and including the training as part of those meetings? And then the second question is, is there anything that you want to include in the board training as we work with Judy to develop the training for you? I think I covered any. Is anything else that we need to discuss? So those are the two things.
Yeah, it was primarily the dates and the time. I mean, during the summer, we normally start at 5. So, and you were talking about 90 minutes each?
About 90 minutes each, yep. And I go back, this past summer is a kind of a tough gauge because we were preparing for reopening. But our superintendent's reports are relatively light. Our agendas are relatively light in the summer. It might be an opportune time. Again, this past summer is hard to gauge because we had a lot of meetings revolving around the pandemic and school reopening.
I'm okay with 5. Does anybody else have any comments?
That sounds fine too.
Yeah, 5 o'clock works for me too. I think it's a good idea to do some type of training. So yeah, I think it's great. We have a lot of new board members, including myself, and I think that we would all benefit from some type of training. Yeah.
I agree that summer meetings are lighter, so it's a good time to do it. And I do really think, I think I had spoken to Dr. Hart that the NJSBA training normally offers a lot more for new board members, and they did not this past year. So I think this is a great opportunity for all, the board roles where we, how we operate and things like that. And Judy Wilson is great. But if you do have any feedback on what you would like to see in the training, then please let Dr. Hart know. So, or Mrs. Simon.
Yeah, even if you don't tell me tonight, if you email me, I can certainly add it to an agenda to talk with Judy Wilson about as well.
I guess I'm just curious why we did the self-evaluation through the New Jersey school boards if we weren't going to then have one of the representatives go through the results with us. I guess is Judy's plan to do that piece of it as part of the training?
I believe
Yeah,
she's going to be reviewing the data and she will go over it with us. You will get a much more in-depth conversation and training with Judy than you would get from school boards. They basically will just go over and just provide you the same information that we did, that we reviewed. There's not much more else that they do. So this is a more comprehensive environment for new board members, as well as the existing ones, to help facilitate everybody working together in a cohesive, to be a cohesive board.
I'm familiar with her work. I'm familiar with her work with the strategic plan. I thought, she did a fabulous job with that. So not really questioning that, just the what her qualifications are in terms of role of board member. I would like to kind of see that. And I just feel like New Jersey School Boards is the authority, organization on that and the roles and responsibilities of the board member. So I just was kind of curious at how that decision was made, but I will certainly support that. Just curious.
If it helps even the board, and I can certainly email to all of you, she provided me a sample of her work, some of the things that she's done with other districts as well, which is different than school boards. So let me locate that and I can certainly send it out just so that you can see the type of engaging work, articles that we will read, right, homework assignments that will have those sorts of things as part of her presentation.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
Just also for the new board members, just because they may not be aware of Judith Wilson's background, she had helped us prior to the strategic plan as well on other topics. She also was a superintendent for decades nearby, so she has very in-depth knowledge on how boards function and how superintendents and boards work collaboratively to accomplish goals. So just something to be aware of, and she can obviously provide you a resume and other information like that. Just for the newer board members, I think, you know, many were not involved several years ago when she was here.
All right, are there any other questions on the self-evaluation and the training? All right, we'll move into new business. Eric's rolling. Green Committee?
Yes, certainly. Let me put on my glasses. We had a meeting on April 13th. First up was Ms. Freeman and a couple of her students, Raya Gupta and Bani Meghadri. I gave a very lively presentation regarding Earth Week activities in the schools, announcement, how they were giving announcements, school displays, promotion of their Go Green website, intersectional alliances, and their activist art exhibition. Other topics were students' campaigns, with a campaign on cafeteria waste and UN global goals. The principals gave Earth Week roundups, and there was just a remarkable and inspiring amount of activities in the schools. The activist art exhibition brought up the possibility of a touring exhibit in the schools, though it's virtual now, so printing would be an issue, but the images could be shown on various monitors in the schools. Also, there are, as you may know, there are representatives of the township, several committees of the township at our meetings. And there was some discussion about partnering with the township. Representatives suggested that the Bowman Stickney Farmhouse could be a possible exhibit venue. Partnering with the township discussions ranged from working with the Museum Society, also the redevelopment of the native garden at RMS, a stream cleanup, tree plantings, tree campus K through 12, which is an Arbor Day Foundation initiative, and promotion of a new regulation passed by Reddington, which is their single-use plastics ban. They want to just kind of ease into that. They don't plan to be heavy-handed in the enforcement of it, but they'd like a little bit of help getting the word out. Then Mr. Race gave an update on the energy use in the district. He discussed trends in electricity and gas consumption since 2008. There's been a significant reduction in both the cost in dollars and the usage of energy, either measured in the kilowatt hours of electricity or the therms of natural gas, as a result of our sustained conservation efforts. For instance, in 2008, 2009, the district spent $1.18 million on total energy. And in 2019 to 2020, we spent $483,000 on energy. While discussing the overall trends, he did note, however, that the data from the past year will be an outlier, of course, due to the reduced usage of the buildings. He provided detail on why the district established a new baseline data year for 2018 and 2019 for comparative purposes going forward. Because we were working off an older baseline year, we have established a new baseline year. The food services RFP, Mr. Bohm discussed the sustainability provisions within the RFP, including, as was already discussed, reusable trays, that there will not be the use of plastic straws, and that there will be no foam service items. Mr. Bohm also presented on the discussion that the cafeteria food waste handling, which has been discussed previously in Green Committee minutes. He discussed progress on investigating the suitability of contracting with Trenton Renewables to receive the organic fraction of our cafeteria waste. He also will be presenting on the initiative at meetings at a meeting for representatives of other county schools. And I'm sorry that I'd forgotten exactly what the meeting was. Mr. Baum can fill us in, but there were other opportunities that he is taking to share the information. Once again, showing that Reddington does truly lead the way in these matters. Sustainability websites, Mr. Hart and Mr. Belsky discussed progress on the websites. There was a brief discussion about possibly organizing the website, about how to organize the websites, including whether to develop a flow chart to organize links based upon the end user. So, for instance, whether a student is accessing it, or a parent, or a teacher, or some outside school district looking for guidance. There are a number of different ways, obviously, to organize a website for user friendliness. The strategic plan update, Dr. Hart requested, he discussed the development of the strategic plan and asked for input. It was suggested that the social awareness goal component could be expanded to promote an awareness of the environment in addition to self and others, so that the social awareness goal could now read, every individual will develop skills that promote an awareness of self, others, and the environment, including the ability to understand the impact of their decisions. It was commented that society and the world would be more livable, just, and sustainable if people simply respected themselves, others as individuals and cultures, and other species and their ecosystems. This is entirely consistent with the larger goal of promoting social awareness. It was suggested that the development of the sustainability sub-goal under social awareness, and there was language that was proposed for that. Dr. Hart, Ms. Freeman, and other members engaged in wordsmithing. There was further discussion regarding the inclusion of sustainability goals elsewhere in the strategic plan and the appropriate places to do so. Dr. Hart made several suggestions, and Ms. Fiore suggested that these efforts are ripe for inclusion in the partnership goals of elsewhere in the strategic plan. And our next meeting will be in the fall of 2021, date not yet decided. And that's that.
Great, thank you so much.
Sorry, I just have to say, ripe for inclusion. Who's wordsmithing now? Yeah.
That I've been in court a lot lately, and when they talk about an issue is ready for discussion, they say this is ripe for discussion. So I apologize for that. I do.
Good one. Okay, so thank you for that. Are there any questions on the committee minutes? No, it sounds like a very productive meeting, so thank you. All right, moving along to open to the public for anything on or off the agenda. There are no comments. Anybody online have any questions that you want to put forward? Any comments? Going once? Going twice? Okay.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to mention to the board, I'll email everybody. At one of the committee meetings, we talked about board members touring the buildings before the end of the school year. We would customarily do this, COVID reasons we hadn't, but we are looking at, just if you want to mark it on your calendar, because we like to do it when students are here, so you can see some of the things happening in the classroom. Our dates that we're looking at are May 20th for Hollenbrook and Three Bridges, and May 26th for RMS and White House. You're all invited. We'll start at 8 a.m. approximately. This way we could do tours and it still gives you time to get to the office, if need be. And I'll email you with final details. I apologize, I forgot about that.
No, that's great.
Yeah. Can you, or can someone send out at least a tentative date holder, a calendar invite?
I'll do it right now as we adjourn to executive because I think I put a tentative thing on my calendar.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
All righty. So we're going to move into executive session now. Can I get a motion to adjourn to executive session in accordance with the Sunshine Law to discuss the superintendent's evaluation and training and RTAA negotiations for approximately 30 minutes, at which time the board expects to return to public session where action shall not be taken. The matters discussed will be made public if and when the circumstances requiring confidentiality no longer exist. However, it is not presently known when such circumstances will exist. Can I get that motion?
So moved, Carol.
Second, Tom.
Can I get a roll call?
Dr. Cerciello,
Yes.
Mr. Emmons,
Yes.
Mrs. Fiore,
Yes.
Mrs. Flores,
Yes.
Mrs. Pogorski,
Yes.
Mr. Wallace,
Yes.
Mr. Zwirling,
Yes.
Mrs. Sample,
Yes.
Mrs. Simon.
Yes, it is 8:20. All right. We'll see you over there. Have a good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.